Ready to dive into a world of whirling dervishes and forbidden love. Today, we're going to be exploring Elif Shafak's novel, The 40 Rules of Love.
Ah, beautiful book.
It really is.
It's a story that intertwines the lives of a modern-day housewife with the 13th century poet Rumi.
And we're so excited to have you here today to guide us through this deep dive into the novel.
I am so excited to be here.
So, what makes The 40 Rules of Love such a captivating read?
Well, I think it's fascinating how Shafak uses these parallel narratives, right? You have these two storylines happening at the same time, one in the present day and one in the 13th century. And through these parallel narratives, she's able to explore these really profound questions about love, spirituality, and self-discovery.
And she does it in a way that, feels so relevant to us today, even though, as you said, these stories span centuries.
Yes, exactly.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the structure of the novel? How do these two storylines actually intertwine?
Yeah, so on the one hand, we have Ella Rubinstein, a 40-year-old housewife living in present-day Northampton, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Her life is pretty comfortable, things are going okay for her, but, she's starting to feel like something is missing.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that way?
Oh, absolutely.
Like you're just going through the motions.
Like you're living somebody else's life.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And then, kind of by chance, Ella is assigned to read this manuscript for her job. It's called Sweet Blasphemy, and it's written by a mysterious author named Aziz Zahara.
Ooh, Sweet Blasphemy.
I know, right? Just the title.
I'm already intrigued.
Me too.
So is this going to be kind of a key turning point for Ella in this story, this book?
It definitely is. It's the catalyst.
Okay.
And as Ella delves deeper into the manuscript, she finds herself being drawn into the world of 13th century Konya, which is in present-day Turkey,
Okay.
and the story of Rumi.
Now, Rumi, I feel like a lot of people might already be familiar with him as a poet. But in this novel, we're meeting him at a really different point in his life.
Right. We're meeting Rumi before he became, the Rumi that we know and love through his poetry. So in the novel, he's a respected Islamic scholar, but he's also kind of wrestling with his own spiritual questions.
So in a way, is he also kind of searching for something more, just like Ella is?
Yes, absolutely. And that's where Shams of Tabriz enters the picture.
Okay, this is the guy, Shams. This is the one that I always hear described as this really enigmatic, almost mythical figure.
He really is, and he really lives up to that reputation in the novel. He's a wandering dervish who just shows up in Konya one day
Okay.
and kind of just completely shakes up Rumi's world.
Okay.
He's unconventional, he's challenging.
So a dervish, for those who maybe aren't as familiar with that term.
Oh yeah, so a dervish is basically a member of a Sufi order, and Sufism is a mystical path within Islam. So these are people who are really devoted to experiencing a direct connection with the divine.
Okay, so Shams kind of embodies this, different approach to spirituality, this more experiential approach.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
He's not about, book learning or dogma.
He's about the heart.
He's about the heart, exactly. And so it's through this unlikely friendship with Shams, right, this clash of personalities and perspectives,
Okay.
that Rumi really undergoes a profound transformation.
So this is kind of what leads to, the Rumi that we know today, the poet, the one who wrote all those beautiful verses about love and longing.
Yes.
Oh.
You could say that Shams kind of awakened the poet within Rumi.
Interesting.
And this awakening isn't just about poetry, but about a whole new way of experiencing and expressing spirituality.
And the novel is called The 40 Rules of Love for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about these rules? How do they actually play into the story?
Yeah, so these 40 rules, they're kind of like spiritual principles. They're inspired by Sufi philosophy, and they're woven throughout the novel.
Okay.
And what I think is so brilliant is how Shafak takes these rules and applies them to both Rumi's time in the 13th century and to Ella's life in the present day.
So it's showing how they're relevant across time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like this timeless wisdom.
So they're not just about romantic love then?
No, they're about a much deeper way of understanding life
Okay.
and our connection to something greater than ourselves.
And one of the rules that I find particularly interesting, especially in relation to both Ella and Rumi's journeys, is this idea that the path to the truth is a labor of the heart, not of the head.
I love that one.
I love that one too.
It's so powerful.
It's so powerful because it's reminding us to trust our intuition,
Yes.
our feelings, even when they might seem irrational.
Yes, to let go of that need to overanalyze everything
Let go of the head.
and just allow ourselves to be guided by something deeper, something more intuitive.
So Ella, through reading Sweet Blasphemy and her connection to Aziz, who wrote the book, She's kind of starting to embark on her own journey of the heart, right?
Yes, exactly.
And Rumi, through his encounter with Shams, is being challenged to step outside of his comfortable role as a scholar
Right.
and embrace this more like passionate, more mystical approach to spirituality.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating is how Shafak uses these two parallel stories to really illustrate the transformative power of love.
So love, in these different forms, is kind of becoming a catalyst for change in both of these stories.
Absolutely. For Ella, it's her connection to Aziz and the way that he opens her up to these new ways of thinking and feeling.
Okay.
And for Rumi, it's his very intense bond with Shams, which challenges his beliefs and pushes him to confront the limitations of his previous understanding of faith.
But this kind of love, it's not always easy or comfortable, is it?
No, it's definitely not.
Like, it's challenging them.
It's messy, it's unpredictable.
It's disruptive.
Yes, exactly. They both face resistance, both internally and externally. So Ella has to kind of confront her own fears and societal expectations.
Okay.
What will people think? And Rumi has to deal with the backlash from his community who see Shams as this dangerous influence.
So it's like they're both being asked to make a choice, to stay within the confines of what's, safe and acceptable.
Right.
Or to follow their hearts, even if it means kind of going against the grain.
And those choices, they have really profound consequences for both of them.
I'm already seeing how these two stories, even though they're separated by, centuries, are actually reflections of each other in a way.
Yeah.
They're both about breaking free from these limitations, about finding your own truth.
Yeah.
And like you said, about embracing the transformative power of love.
Yes.
Even when it's messy and unpredictable.
That's what makes the novel so compelling,
Yeah.
It's not just a story, it's like an invitation to look at our own journeys, our own search for meaning and connection.
And we've got Ella starting to question her life. Rumi on the verge of this major spiritual shift.
Yes.
I'm curious about Shams, though.
Oh, yes.
Like, he sounds like a total wild card.
He is.
Like, what's his deal?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Shams is a fascinating figure. He's unconventional, he's outspoken, and he's shrouded in mystery. Some people view him as a heretic, while others are drawn to his wisdom. And even within the novel itself, there are all these different interpretations of him.
Okay.
So, for example, Sultan Walid, who is Rumi's son, describes Shams as bold, boisterous, and intelligent.
Okay.
But other characters see him as a manipulator or even as this dangerous figure who might be connected to the assassins.
Wait, the assassins? Like the ones from history?
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
The assassins were a real historical group known for their secrecy and, let's just say, their unique methods of, political influence.
Yeah.
And in the novel, there are characters who speculate that Shams might be connected to them.
Wow.
Some even go so far as to call him, like, the devil incarnate.
So is he a spiritual guy? Is he a troublemaker? Is he dangerous? Or is he, like, all of the above?
I think Shafak leaves that open to interpretation.
Okay, so we've already got
Yeah.
like twists and turns in the story,
Lots of layers.
and we've just started.
Yes.
This is going to be an interesting deep dive, I can already tell.
It definitely is.
I can't wait to see what happens next.
Me too.
So last time we left off with both Ella and Rumi, like really kind of on the brink of these major life
It's
changes.
huge changes.
Ella's engrossed in this manuscript, sweet blasphemy. And then Rumi, his world has been totally like upended by the arrival of Shams of Tabriz.
Yeah, Shams really shakes things up.
He does. So where do things go from here with Ella?
Well, as you recall, she's been corresponding with Aziz, the author of Sweet Blasphemy, through email.
Right.
She's this 40-year-old housewife, remember?
Yeah, in this kind of, I don't know, stagnant marriage.
Yeah.
And then here's this like interesting, unconventional author who's really sparked something in her.
Exactly, like a reawakening. And their email exchanges, they actually become more and more intimate, not just like intellectually, but emotionally. And eventually, Aziz actually invites Ella to meet him in person.
Oh, wow.
In Boston.
That's a big step.
It is.
I mean, what does she do?
Well, she goes.
Wow.
Even though it's totally out of character for her.
So what's it like when they finally meet face to face? Does it live up to all this anticipation?
Their meeting is really interesting. It's charged with this kind of, nervous energy.
Yeah,
Ella is stepping into a world that's so different from her own.
totally.
Aziz is staying at a hotel in Boston, and he invites Ella up to his room.
Okay.
It's clear there's a mutual attraction there, but Ella's apprehensive.
She's never done anything like this before.
Right, she's taking a risk.
So how does Aziz, how does he handle this?
Aziz is incredibly respectful.
Okay.
He senses her unease and, like, he guides her to a chair away from the bed, and he's really reassuring.
Okay.
He says to her, it's so crowded inside your mind, too
Uh,
many voices.
he sounds perceptive, like he can see right through her.
He does.
That's probably part of what she's drawn to, I would imagine.
I think so. He offers her this different way of seeing the world.
Okay.
And they talk about their lives. And Ella learns more about Aziz, about his past, his transformation from being this successful businessman to a wandering dervish.
Wait, he was a businessman?
He was.
That's a huge contrast to the spiritual seeker he is now.
Yeah. He tells her about his first love, a woman named Margot.
Oh.
She was this very passionate, free-spirited woman who died tragically in a car accident.
Oh.
And he describes how her death just completely shattered him.
Wow.
Like he lost himself in grief and addiction.
So it was this really profound loss that kind of set him on this new path.
Yes, absolutely. He tells Ella how he traveled to the East seeking spiritual guidance, and eventually he embraced this new life as a wandering dervish.
Interesting.
He took the name Aziz
Okay.
and devoted himself to the path of love.
I mean, that's an incredible story of transformation. Do you think Ella sees, like, parallels between his journey and her own?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
As they talk, she's starting to see her own longing for something more in this new light. Remember that rule from the 40 Rules of Love, the one about the path to truth being a labor of the heart, not the head. This is really where that rule starts to come alive for Ella in her own story.
So she's realizing she needs to listen to her heart, even if it leads her, in some unexpected directions.
Exactly.
And Aziz actually encourages her to do this.
He does. He gives her this beautiful necklace. It has a silver whirling dervish pendant and turquoise and red coral beads.
Beautiful.
And he tells her that these colors actually represent the colors of her aura.
That's amazing.
That's very symbolic.
It's like this powerful symbol of the journey that she's on.
Yes.
A reminder to, like, stay connected to her inner self.
And just as Rumi found his voice through poetry, Aziz encourages Ella to find her own unique form of expression.
Now, we can't ignore the obvious here.
Right.
There's this romantic element to their connection.
There is.
Wow.
And Ella, despite her reservations, she's drawn to Aziz's warmth, his passion, and his, unconventional way of seeing the world.
But she's still married with a family.
Exactly.
So I imagine this is creating some, like, serious inner conflict for her.
Oh, absolutely. Ella's torn between the safety and the familiarity of her current life.
Right.
And the allure of this new path, this unknown territory that Aziz represents.
It's like a classic crossroads in life.
Yes, it is.
So how does Aziz respond to this, to her conflict?
He's incredibly understanding and respectful of her situation.
Yeah.
He even confesses that he was too afraid to even touch her, let alone make love to her, because he didn't want to complicate things further.
Wow.
He says to her, I wanted to say, let's travel the world together. Let's admire God's composition together.
That's beautiful.
It is. He recognizes that what they have is more than just a fleeting romance. He sees something deeper, something that transcends physical intimacy.
Okay. Now, I think we should shift gears a little bit here.
Okay.
And revisit the events that are unfolding after Shams disappears from Rumi's life.
Yeah.
Remember, we left off with Rumi just, like, devastated by the loss of his beloved companion.
Yeah, and there's so much speculation about what happened to Shams. Like, was he murdered?
Did he just vanish?
Did he just vanish? Nobody really knows, and this uncertainty just weighs so heavily on Rumi.
So how does he cope with this profound loss? Like, does he turn away from this, spiritual path that Shams introduced him to?
No, actually, he does the opposite.
Okay.
Rumi's grief, his longing for Shams, it actually becomes a source of inspiration for his poetry.
Interesting.
He pours his heart and soul into his writing.
Okay.
He expresses his love for Shams, his loss, his evolving understanding of the divine.
And is his community, like, supportive during this time?
Unfortunately, not everyone is so understanding. Rumi's close relationship with Shams had already sparked a lot of controversy, remember?
Right. People were suspicious of Shams.
They called him a heretic, spread rumors about him.
Right. They even accused him of, like, putting a spell on Rumi.
Exactly. And Shams' disappearance, it just fuels all these rumors.
Of course.
People start blaming Shams for Rumi's withdrawal from public life, for his more mystical teachings, and for the growing popularity of the whirling dervish tradition.
Which a lot of people saw as very unconventional.
Very unconventional.
So it's like the very things that are bringing Rumi closer to his truth are alienating him from some parts of his community.
Sadly, yes.
That's sad.
A lot of Rumi's former students, admirers, they actually abandon him.
Wow.
They're afraid he's been led astray by Shams.
It's heartbreaking to think that he's facing rejection after such a profound loss.
It was a very difficult time for him.
Yeah.
But Rumi, strengthened by his spiritual convictions and his love for Shams, he stays strong.
He keeps going.
He continues to teach, he continues to write poetry, and he leads his followers on the path of love.
I mean, that's powerful. Even in the face of, so much adversity, he's staying true to himself.
And to his beliefs. His life is such a powerful example of how love can be a source of both joy and sorrow, but ultimately it leads us towards a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the world.
Yeah, it's like this beautiful reminder that even when things are difficult, love can be this, guiding force.
Exactly. And it's a theme that really resonates throughout the 40 Rules of Love. Shafak connects Rumi's story to Ella's modern journey so beautifully.
And speaking of Ella, we left her feeling, pretty raw after her encounter with Aziz.
Right.
So does she find a way to integrate all these new insights into her own life?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
But to really appreciate the parallels between Ella's and Rumi's journeys, I think we should first look at how Rumi's life unfolds in the wake of Shams's disappearance.
Okay, so let's go back to Rumi. We left off with Rumi kind of grappling with the loss of Shams and facing this backlash from his community.
Yeah, it's really a crucial point in his journey.
So how does he keep going on his spiritual path with all this going on?
Well, Rumi's journey after Shams disappears, it's really something.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been easy for him to just kind of retreat back into his old life, right? Distance himself from all the controversy that Shams had brought.
Yeah, just go back to the way things were before all this happened.
Right, exactly.
But that's not what he does.
No, not at all.
So he's really committed to what he and Shams, started together.
It's like their shared journey continues to guide him, even in Shams's absence.
So his love for Shams and this path they were on together, that doesn't diminish it, it deepens.
It's like his grief, it doesn't diminish his faith, it actually deepens it.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is. And he continues to explore these mystical dimensions of Islam. And he really embraces practices like the Sema, the whirling dervish ceremony.
Oh, yeah.
Which becomes like the central part of his spiritual expression.
It's such a beautiful practice to watch.
Oh.
It's almost hypnotic to watch those dervishes whirling, their white robes swirling around them.
It's mesmerizing.
Do you think, Rumi saw the Sema as a way to connect with the divine?
It's really interesting to consider what the Sema might have meant to him personally.
Yeah.
Some scholars believe that the whirling represents a journey towards spiritual enlightenment.
Okay.
A shedding of the ego, a way to transcend the physical world and connect with something greater.
And all of this is reflected in his poetry from this period, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So.
He writes some of his most beloved verses after Shams's disappearance.
So it's like his grief is this wellspring of creative inspiration.
It really is. He pours his longing for Shams, his spiritual insights, his reflections on love and loss, all into his poetry.
And that's what makes it so universal. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, his words, they resonate with such depth of emotion.
That they still touch people's hearts centuries later.
I think that's one of the things that's so powerful about art,
Yeah.
Its ability to kind of transcend time and connect us to something larger than ourselves.
And Shafak, she does such a beautiful job of weaving Rumi's story with Ella's contemporary journey.
She really does.
So let's go back to Ella.
Okay.
We left her, she's back in Northampton, but she's clearly changed by her experience with Aziz.
Right. She's not content with the life she once knew.
But how does she navigate this, this in-between space she's in?
Well, she tries to go back to the way things were.
Yeah.
But, it's a struggle.
Right, because something shifted within her.
Exactly. She's not the same woman who left for Boston.
And her husband, David, he knows about her correspondence with Aziz.
Yes, he does.
So that must create some tension in their marriage.
Well, what's interesting is that David is actually surprisingly understanding. It's almost like he's resigned to the idea that their marriage has run its course.
Like they've both outgrown their roles.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
And Ella's children, they're going through their own transformations too, right?
They are. especially Jeanette,
Her daughter.
her daughter, yeah. Remember how opposed she was to Ella's connection with Aziz at first?
Right.
Well, her perspective really starts to shift.
Interesting.
She sees how her mother's desire for something more, for a deeper connection, it's not so different from her own longing for love and fulfillment.
Oh, wow. So there's this like understanding that develops between
Oh,
them.
deeper understanding. Yeah.
So Ella's journey, it's like having this ripple effect on her family.
Yes, it's challenging them all to grow.
It's amazing how all these personal stories, these transformations, are so intertwined with this grand narrative of Rumi's spiritual awakening.
Shafak does a masterful job of weaving those threads together.
But there's still this lingering question. What really happened to Shams?
Right, the mystery remains.
Does Shafak ever give us a definitive answer?
Not really. The novel offers these glimpses, hints, different perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately the truth remains elusive.
And maybe that's part of the point.
I think so.
Like, the mystery of Sham's disappearance is meant to mirror the mysteries of life itself, right?
Exactly. Like, we rarely get all the answers in life.
Yeah.
We're often left with these fragments of information. We have to grapple with uncertainty.
And find our own meaning.
Exactly.
And that's what both Rumi and Ella are doing, right?
Yeah, they're navigating their own journeys without having all the answers.
And this is where those 40 rules of love offer guidance.
They're like principles for living a more authentic and meaningful life.
Not a set of rigid rules, but more like a way of approaching life.
A way of being in the world that's open to love, to change, to mystery.
And what about Ella and Aziz? Did their paths ever cross again?
Well, that's left open to interpretation as well.
Okay.
The novel ends with Ella traveling to Turkey,
Oh, wow.
to the land of Rumi and Shams.
So she's following the threads of this story she's been so immersed in.
Yes, she's weaving them into her own life. She goes to Konya, the city where Rumi lived and taught, and she immerses herself in the world of the whirling dervishes.
That's beautiful.
It is. It's like this image of coming full circle, of connecting her own journey to this rich spiritual heritage.
In the novel, it ends on such a hopeful note.
It
It
does.
suggests that the journey of self-discovery, it never really ends.
That's ongoing.
And I think that's what makes this book and this deep dive so powerful.
Absolutely. It's this reminder that we're all on a journey of transformation.
And like Rumi, we have the potential to be awakened by an unexpected encounter.
We just have to stay open to the possibility, embrace the unknown, and trust that love in all its forms will guide us along the way.
That's beautiful. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
I agree.
So to all our listeners out there, as you go about your day, just keep your heart open to those Shams moments.
Yes.
Those unexpected encounters that have the power to change everything.
You never know what magic might be waiting just around the corner.